Good evening. Welcome to the Gala Finals of the 2015 Jazz Fellowship Awards. You know, this is the moment we have been waiting for all season, and it takes many people to make this moment happen. The APA staff, the board, our sponsors, our donors, our host families, you, the audience. We all come together to celebrate this great genre that we call jazz. And we're so excited that we have found 5 terrific finalists. I think I have the greatest job in the world. And as you see some of the interviews with the people connected with this organization, and most especially our 5 great finalists, you'll know why. Thanks so much for being with us.
Basically, the overall mission of the APA is to discover, promote, and advance the careers of young American pianists, both jazz and classical. And of course, they've got to be world class, and they truly are world class. I mean, to see these young men and women play the piano like they play is just stunning to me. And I just think it's something that adds to the fabric of this community, and it's something people ought to be exposed to.
The way that the APA selects its finalists, it's the top young jazz pianists in the country. And you know, the top people already know about each other, and so they're already creating a buzz in their own little worlds, or big worlds sometimes. And so for them, it's a huge thing. Not only for the $100,000 in the fellowship award that they might win, but for them it's to be selected as one of the absolute top jazz pianists in the country, if not the entire world.
First of all, these are extremely young people, and they're very accomplished. From that perspective, I think that the performances that they put on are just extraordinary. I try to go to every performance that I can go to if I'm in town. Every time I do go, I'm even more amazed at how superb these pianists are. It just overwhelms me every time I see a performance like that. And I think the one thing that I'm very proud about the APA is we have a very high artistic standard. The programming is done very, very well.
It's really a great experience working with all these guys. They all bring something different to the table. That's the challenge of it all, really, is to make each one of those guys feel like they're getting their music played the way they desire it. So Nick and I really spent a lot of time just trying to prepare for the music and enjoy playing with those guys. Those are fantastic players. I love the organization, not only just on stage, the performance, but the organization. And I really like that they have the community aspect where they go into the high schools and they go into Eskenazi. They really get involved in the community. These guys are national talent. So for them to come in town to be able to sit with our kids and play in some of the centers and stuff, that's a really noble thing. So I really like that part of it.
Joel Harrison approached us last summer and came up with this wonderful idea to have an exclusive jazz concert series with the American Pianist Association's Cole Porter Fellows in Jazz program, and each of the 5 finalists came to perform at the hospital. We had the beautiful piano here in the concourse, and we invited each of the finalists to come and perform, and we invited people from the community, and then anyone who was passing by in the concourse was able to enjoy it. Most of them were in the late afternoon, so people were able to come as they were leaving shifts or after they finished their doctor's appointments or visiting family members. And each of the finalists brought their own personality and incredible musicality to the hospital environment and created a really wonderful healing environment for our patients and our staff. It was just incredible morale boosting, so we were really appreciative of it. It was a dream come true for us to have the best musicians of their generation to come and perform at our hospital. Each of them flew in from out of state to participate, and we really enjoyed each and every one of them. They spent time after the concert to attend a reception, so our family members, our donors, our prospective interested people that just came and showed up for the concert from as far away as a couple of hours even, came and were able to meet the artists. And they were just such incredibly humble, creative, wonderful young men that we just really enjoyed having them here. Thank you so much for this opportunity. We couldn't thank you enough for bringing incredible music to Eskenazi Health. We really look forward to working with the APA in the future and welcoming other musicians from different backgrounds and genres to come to Eskenazi Health.
Will I really say that the piano chose me? I've been playing for such a long time. I really got interested in the piano because the piano was around the house. You know, that was just an instrument that was available in the house. So I can kind of think that's really how I started playing, was just because the piano was around. My family, they listened to a lot of music and they played here and there. My parents both tinkered at the piano. They both played a little bit, you know, so we had an upright spinet in the living room, and they used to sit me on their lap and they would play a little bit, or I went to church, you know, so I was around a lot of music, you know. Even when I went to school, a neighbor, she would drive me to school with her daughter and she would be playing music in the car, you know, so music was always around. Who I listen to now, there's so many. I mean, I try to listen to everybody just to be familiar with what's going on, you know, from people like Marcus Roberts, or, you know, not even in jazz, like Bruno Mars, or, you know, just to try to be well-rounded. Bjork is one of my favorite singers and composers, so I like Bjork a lot. You name it, there's a lot of different things that I like as far as music. I was a part of the Charlie Palmieri Latin jazz piano competition. That was back in 2009, yes. And that was a Latin piano competition, which was a lot of fun. And the prize was to study with Sonny Bravo, who was Tito Puente's pianist. So that was great, that was a lot of fun. And besides that, this was it. I'll have to say, like, the past 3 or 4 years, I've been doing a lot of teaching. College level, elementary school level, preschool, I mean, you know, you name it, to, you know, senior citizens. You know, I'm always trying to teach, you know, and education is really important to me. So I feel that when you teach, that's how you spread the music. Practice is definitely a word of advice I give students, but also just to be open and live life, because that, when you live life, that really reflects what goes on in your music. You know, so don't be afraid to try new things and go see new things and go, you know, feel new things. You know, don't be afraid to experience things, and then put that in your music, whatever you experience. That's what I tell my students.
I had a crush on the choir director at my church. I thought she was really beautiful. I just loved the way she looked when she played with the organ. It was like, that instrument's really cool. So like, there'll be times where I would like mock her, like playing on the banisters, and like climb on top of televisions and bang out the rhythms. One day my mom got tired. She was like, I'm tired of this boy climbing up on this television, banging on my television. So let me get him a keyboard. Maybe that might be what he's trying to do. One day the Jeopardy theme song came on television. I just picked out the melody, so she says. I was just able to pick out the melody. That was how I started playing the piano. I come from a musical family. I have a family of both sides of singers. Some instrumentalists here and there. I have a cousin who plays all instruments, who was actually my first music teacher. And I have a cousin who plays bass. One of my great aunts played piano, but she never got any formal training. She would just play in church and play behind her family group. Other than that, I'm the only musician in the family. My dad was into every R&B soul album, you know, from Barry White and the Spinners to Nita Baker and Whitney Houston, Stevie Wonder, Secret Life of Plants, and Songs in the Key of Life were like the records that I listened to. Remember listening to Earth, Wind and Fire, listen to that on rotation constantly, you know. Well, then that was mostly gospel. This is my first competition, my very first. I've never applied. Well, I've never applied or auditioned to anything before this. I won a fellowship a couple years back, but I was nominated by a few teachers from Oberlin. I turned in a resume and they were like, you got it. So cool, yeah. But this is the first time I've ever been in a competition. Every now and then, I do a little bit of teaching. I do this summer workshop in Lafayette, California. Shout out to Bob Thade. We do that I try to do that as many summers as I can. I've been doing that for the past 4 or 5 years, I think. I really loved it. Love working with the piano players and different faculty. You know, I learn a lot. I probably learn a lot more from the students than they actually learn from me. But yeah, I really love doing it. It's really cool. What's the best piece of advice that I could give a student? Stick with it. Definitely stick with it. Keep your ears, eyes, and your heart open to music. And always be a student. Don't go into it with a mentality that, oh, I know everything. Or, you know, oh, I'm the best at and I'm the best at this, so I can do this, but always be willing to learn. And some of the best teachers of music aren't musicians. Some of the greatest teachers are just your average listener that doesn't hear all the intricacies of what you do, but they can feel what you're going for. Feel things that you kind of take for granted in the music. Yeah, that's what I would say. Keep your ears and heart and mind open. Always be a student.
I started on Suzuki piano when I was 3 years old. I think it was a dream of my father's that he always wanted to be a professional musician. He wanted to give me the best shot possible if I wanted to do that as well. And so he got me started super early, and it just became a part of my life and what I did from age 3. So I've never really known life without it. My parents always tell the story about one time they invited some friends over. My grandparents had these friends come over and watch me play because I was, the entertainment portion of the evening, whatever. And I, 6 years old, maybe went to sit down and play, and I could play some Bach and some kind of impressive stuff. And I just took one finger and I just played Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star. They were like, what is this guy? And then I went into it, and So I've always kind of liked to have a sense of humor about the music, and I think that's what led me to jazz, because the personality can really come through. I do love to listen to jazz mostly, and to analyze it and to really get really deep into it and understand everything about what's going on when people play together and what makes a good band and what makes people play well together. Well, I just try to spend time with the piano whenever I can. Once you reach a professional level, you travel a lot and you have obligations, and once you become an adult, then you have obligations to life and bills to pay, and it's not all the time that I get to sit down and really practice, like I did when I was in high school or middle school or even elementary school, when I just, didn't have any other commitments. So I make time when I can, and I work on stuff, and I have stuff ready. If I'm asked to play a concert, I can do it like that. I don't have to sit down and prepare, for it. It's already inside of me. I think I just try to remember to stay as relaxed as possible. There's different kinds of settings and different kinds of concerts. If I'm playing a solo piano concert, that requires the most focus and the most discipline, because it's all up to me what happens. And if I'm playing with a band or with a trio or even with another person, I have to check the ego and play with those people. To prepare for that, you just have to go in with an open mind and just be flexible and be ready for anything. So there's no real way to prepare for it. You just have to, be an open, honest person, and it'll come through in the music. I do a lot of stuff with older people who can already improvise, and I take them from being good to being great. And I have a lot of techniques and devices I use for that, but for someone who's 8 years old, I think it's just important to keep them inspired. Have them understand that playing music is fun. It's not about practicing 9 hours a day and slaving and having a Russian teacher with a ruler. If you want to be a musician, it should be because you have a love for music and you couldn't imagine yourself doing anything else. So I would say just to have them work hard, but also to do some stuff to remind them that they do it because it's fun, and it'll stick with them their whole lives.
I'm living in Brooklyn right now. I actually just moved about 3 months ago. So I used to live in Indianapolis for the last about 5 years. Being back is amazing. It's kind of it's kind of awesome. You know, it's like you get to see a place from new eyes. You know, I feel almost like when I lived here, I saw it in a completely different way, and now everything's kind of got this new sheen on it. It's like weird to see your place that you used to call home almost as a tourist, but that's what I'm feeling right now. It's pretty awesome to be here. I'm seeing a lot of old friends. It's great. We always had music around the house. Like my dad would just play records constantly. We had a piano. My dad was a banjo player and guitar player. My mom would play a little piano from time to time again. I always really wanted to learn, but kind of the tipping point was sort of where I had a babysitter. Probably I was around 6 or 7 years old, and she would come over and practice on her little upright. And I was just fascinated with it. Like she was playing a lot of classical music. She played, like, in particular, this Telemann piece that I've tried to find forever, and I've not found it again. Some Telemann weird piece in E minor that I can't find. She would play that, and I actually had, like, my grandparents had this old, like, tape recorder, this huge boxy thing. And I took it from their house, and I would just, like, record my voice, record stuff on TV and stuff like that. And she would practice, and I really loved hearing this piece, so I recorded it, and then, like, I was just listening to it. I'd never heard classical music before. I guess I heard it, but it was, like, so fresh to hear it on my own piano in front of my house. And I listened to that over and over, and then I just begged my parents for lessons. They let me when I was old enough. I think I was 7 or 8. I was finally old enough to do that. I did the APA competition, I guess, 4 years ago when Aaron Deal was the name of the fellow. So that's the only experience I've had doing this, but it seems like it's kind of a different competition this time anyway, so it kind of feels like that. I'm not really used to competing, and it's kind of a weird, crazy experience that's never the same. I get nervous all the time. I guess I get nervous before I play, I get nervous while I'm playing, and then I'm nervous until the very end. But it was really weird. I was so nervous for my solo performance last year, and I was, like, so mortified when it was over, and I was just, like, so outside of myself. And I went back and listened to it later, and it was like, oh man, I shouldn't have freaked out like this. This was cool. So that kind of put things in perspective, and then kind of in the very finals, I just kind of had a devil-may-care attitude. Just was like, whatever, all my family's here, got friends here, who cares, you know? I know that attitude's really hard to cultivate, and it's a lot easier to say that I'm gonna feel that way this time than it is to actually, you know, not freak out, which I'm sure I will. Never lose sight of what it is that you truly love about music and what you truly love about art. When you learn a musical instrument, you have a teacher, any teacher, you go to a music school, or you are around other musicians. There are all kinds of people who, whether they mean to or not, they're pushing a different musical agenda on you. And one of the things I've had to find really strongly is that the only stuff that I play that I really believe in is that stuff that's kind of always resonated with me. I mean, my tastes have broadened and things like that. I've grown and I've learned all kinds of stuff, but there's a little something of, like, the 17-year-old me that's always still there, and that's the ultimate decider of, like, whether what I did was cool or lame.
I live in Manhattan now. Yeah, been there for about 8 years. I mean, it's definitely quieter here, but it's beautiful. It's really nice. I'm really enjoying seeing it. So it's my first time here. My parents, they're not musicians at all, but for some reason before I was born, they decided that they wanted me to play piano specifically. And so when I was very young, I started Suzuki lessons when I was about 4. And then when I was 8, I started private lessons. And they were really animated about me continuing and sticking with it. They actually had some piano player they found, some random sampler CD that they actually put on my mom's stomach when she was pregnant with me. When I started getting into jazz, my dad would listen to the radio, and whenever he heard something he thought he liked, he would write it down and buy the CD for me or tell me to get it. Yeah. Listen to a lot of film scores, a lot of indie rock music, a lot of electronic music, classical music, some 90s indie rock, some hip hop, R&B, old school R&B, kind of, anything pretty much. I've been on the road for pretty much the last 3 years straight, touring with people like Marcus Miller or Jose James and some different artists here and there. And so, yeah, pretty much hit almost every continent. I mean, obviously not Antarctica, but I think I've been everywhere else, yeah. Definitely more of a calming thing. I definitely like to mess around with the piano and just like let my hands go wherever they're gonna go. And I feel like it's easier to find and discover new things that way than to like be concerned about what I'm gonna play and how I'm gonna play and then try to figure something out. And then then there are all these nerves build up. And then also you end up playing something you always play. And so it's kind of fun to just kind of mess around. And every time I sit at the piano, I just kind of plop my hands down, mess around with the sound for a little while, which is fun. I gave lessons a lot when I was still in school at Juilliard, and I gave lessons to some younger students and some teenagers, and then I also taught ear training at Juilliard for 3 years while I was there. Definitely finding something that they connect with, because I feel like, you're going to practice and work hard on something you're passionate about so much more than something that somebody else assigned to you. And so I feel like that's the first thing, is trying to find something that they're passionate about and getting them excited about that. And then also just reminding them that with each step, each hurdle you jump over, it gets so much more fun after that, Like you have this period where you're working on something and it's really difficult and it's really frustrating. Once you get past that frustration, all of a sudden you have this new skill that you're able to show off, and it's a lot of fun in that period. And then you have another hurdle coming up.